All right, having a great conversation with Congressman Matt Salmon. I guess you're still congressman. You know, you're a former congressman, I think.
Nobody ever called me congressman, even when I was a congressman.
That's
It was
true.
like, hey, you.
Yeah. I want to talk about, you mentioned national security, and I've reminded people before, I was just about 6 months too young to vote for Reagan for his second term. I turned 18 in June of 85.
Right.
And but I remember those years vividly, and winning the Cold War was an economic victory.
Very much so.
And are we in a position now, if we were to get into that kind of a Cold War with China or China and Russia, or that access that's coming together in that region, are we in a position where we could still do that in your mind?
I don't think so. In fact, when you think of the exorbitant federal debt that we have, close to a third of that's owed to China. Not a lot of people know that or understand that. And so it concerns me. Right now, we got to put the brakes on as fast as we can.
Do you think both parties, at some point, do leaders in both parties have to look at what's happening and say, we've got to rein in the spending? Because it's not just a Republican issue.
No, it's not just a Republican issue. In fact, when you look at, the spending, it's been, when it comes to spending over the last 30, 40 years, actually one of the most frugal presidents was Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
And he did it kicking and screaming because we kind of forced him into it. We had a majority in the House and in the Senate, but we balanced the budget 3 years in a row. And so, it can be done. But, when I think about, we balanced the budget in 2000, and I left in January of 2001. President Bush became president. Up starts going the deficit immediately again. So it was a Republican president. And during Trump's time, he had added close to $8 trillion to the federal debt, probably the most any president's done in American history in one term.
How much do you attribute that to the need for spending with COVID? Because that's what everybody talks about.
But COVID was the worst welfare program you can ever imagine. You know as well as I do that those PPP loans were a scam. And right now you're seeing with involvement from, CBO, not CBO, but the GAO, the fact that they are looking at those programs and they're finding literally hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud. And then on the $1,200 checks that they sent out to some people, you and I didn't get them, but many people got $1,200 checks during COVID to try to stimulate the economy. My dead mom, who'd been dead for 3 years, got a check. I just got to tell you, I think it was the worst kind of welfare imaginable.
What was the other option? Because with businesses being forced to close,
there should have been an executive order at the federal level that no businesses are going to close. He should have stepped in. He put way too much credence in that goofball Fauci, who probably ought to be tried. For what he did on gain of function in the Wuhan laboratory. But the fact is that so much was mismanaged during COVID.
So what happens in this election cycle? Because President Biden has promised that if he's reelected, the Trump tax cuts are going to expire.
That would be devastating.
Okay, but then if you are concerned about the spending of former President Trump, do you believe in a second term of a Trump presidency that he would manage the spending better the second time around?
Look, when you look at the choice between him and Biden, it's like, pick your poison. Look, Biden is a useful idiot. I don't think he's really calling the shots. I think that you've still got Obama calling the shots, the people from his administration, which are working for Biden. I'd like to be able to say, that Trump would go in and get control of things. But you know what? He's promised to take Social Security and Medicare off the table, and you cannot get there if you don't try to reform those two things.
Do you see who are the people in the Congress, in the House? Who are the people in the House that are still, in your opinion, the same kind of fiscal hawks that the Freedom Caucus was founded on?
Well, two of my former colleagues from Arizona, I think, are really still fighting that fight, to their credit. One is Andy Biggs. I think Andy is a solid fiscal hawk. He's as smart as anybody I know. I mean, he's a former state Senate president. He understands, he understands the math. And the other one's David Schweiker. David's on the floor all the time, bringing the numbers to people's view, understanding that this is what we have to do in order to balance the federal budget. The problem is almost nobody else in Congress is talking about it.
When you look at that, when you look at them not talking about it, are they going to be forced to talk about it? Because Social Security,
when it's everlastingly too late.
You think
that's
so?
the problem. Yeah. I mean, that's probably dismays me more than just about anything, is that we can, keep things moving with baling wire and chewing gum only for so long.
Right.
And finally, you have to address the real problem. And unfortunately, talking about the federal debt and balancing the budget don't seem to be motivating many people right now.
See, I like this non-candidate, non-elected official, Matt Salmon, saying exactly what you think. This is the Matt that I've gotten to know off the air, and I really do appreciate the candor and the honesty, because it looks like the choices we have for president, that Trump is going to be the better option for people in our position that think like us. But at the same time, the concerns are real from a lot of voters as well.
Well, and the fact is that, here we are, a country of 500 million people. And I long so much, for a Reagan type individual to step forward and be willing to lead our country again. We are in such bad need of somebody that is going to start talking truth to power and actually leading, like an Abraham Lincoln. You think about it, Mike, if Abraham Lincoln had done some polling with his political consultants to determine whether or not freeing the slaves was actually something that, was popular with the American people, he probably would have found maybe 8% of America supported something like that, and everybody else was vastly opposed, especially if we're going to have a mass war to get it done. But he led with a moral authority, and he did what he needed to do because he was a great leader. We haven't seen great leaders for a long, long, long time.
I appreciate the time today, as always. It's always great to talk to you.
Thanks, Mike.
That's Matt Salmon, former congressman.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch the first season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.